Thank you for joining me today, Fiona. I was just thinking earlier, so you're the second female guest that I've had on the podcast, and my last guest was female as well. So it's just like buses, like two come at once. So yeah, would you mind just giving a bit of an intro to yourself?
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I've been looking forward to this for the last few weeks. So, yeah, I'm Fiona Hobbs. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at a company called 3T. 3T are a training and technology business, and they're right across the globe, actually. So, lots of training centres in the UK, but also across the Middle East and Americas as well.
Yeah, great. So a global company.
Yep.
Yeah. And how many sort of developers and people are you responsible for?
So I run all of the engineering teams. So I've got 5, soon to be 6 engineering teams. So if you do the maths, roughly about 5 people on a team, about 30 people sit underneath me at the moment. So it's not huge, but it's a nice number. You can do quite a lot with that without it being having all of the protocols of a large company and the circus that goes around there.
So I wanted to go back to the start, if that's okay. So what got you into, I guess, the position you're in terms of like, where did the interest come from to get into tech?
Well, gosh. So I got my first computer when I was 9, so back in the 80s, late 80s. And I primarily thought of that as a games console, and I've never been into video games, so I am partial to a bit of Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop games, but not video games. Still not. And yeah, it didn't really realize the power of what computing would be. My uncle got a very nice computer when I was around about 13, 14, and I started to be a bit more interested in it. And I guess I really started getting into it at the age of 14 when I was deciding what GCSEs to take. So I went to an all-girls Catholic school run by nuns, so it was actually attached to a convent, and it was the first year that they were doing GCSE IAT. And I just remember my uncle saying, you know, you'll not do wrong learning how to use a computer, do well at maths, do well at sciences, and you can pick whatever job you want. So I chose IT. Was the only person left taking the course by the end of those 2 years at GCSE. So I was the only one that sat the exam that year in the school. But I guess it kind of just blossomed from there.
Yeah. And then did you go down the traditional route of like college, university?
Eventually. So
Right.
I had a couple of years out. I left school at 16, wanted some pennies in my pocket. I had literally everything was an A at GCSE. I did really, really well. I thought, get a really good job. And bearing in mind, this was still in the 90s. So yeah, I just thought I'd walk into a decent job, and didn't happen. So I had some horrific jobs. Worked in an abattoir, became vegetarian after that. And I was an apprentice in a car garage for a bit, and just thought, I remember being 18 thinking, there's got to be something better. So I went back to college and studied IT at college. I did a computing A level, and I only went to college because I wanted to join the police force. So never at any point did I think, oh, I really want to be in computing. But I did really, really well, and I really enjoyed it. And I landed a place at university at Durham, and I guess that kind of sealed the fate, computing degree.
Yeah.
And yeah, and 20 years later, here we are.
Yeah. And have you always been based in the Northeast?
Yeah, although I did have a little stint in Barcelona for a year.
Nice.
So I went to work for Sage in Barcelona for a year in my early 30s. Great.
Yeah. And I've been to Barcelona a couple of times. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic city to live in when you're in your early 30s. So financially kind of independent, making a decent wage. Brilliant place to be.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. So you've done your degree. Did you find it challenging to land your first sort of job in IT?
Actually.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I never thought about that. So I left university in the May, and I didn't get a job until the following January. So I was working. So I worked all the way through college and university, part time in a betting shop. And so, it took me, I'd say, a good 6 months to land a job.
Yeah. And
It was like buses.
yeah,
Two came along at the same time.
so you had the choice.
Yeah.
And then was your first job in IT in development?
It was, yeah. So I joined a startup who were in the Centre for Life and a biosciences startup. And I was the only person with a computing background. Everybody else was biologists or chemists.
Yeah.
Everybody else had a PhD. No, I didn't. And I was there for 3 years till the company spent all of its money and went bust. But I managed to get a free master's out of that as well.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
What was that like then? Because that, to me, that could seem quite daunting where you're the only person with a computing background and everybody else is doing science. How was that as like a steep learning curve at the start?
There was a lot of science stuff that I had to learn. But I was never made to feel like I was anything less because I didn't have that background or I didn't have a doctorate like everybody else. It was a fantastic culture of the company where I worked, and I never felt anything other than heard and seen.
Yeah.
I guess, given some of my jobs further on my career, I was very lucky to start off like that.
Yeah. And then, so we were speaking earlier, so you've been in the industry for 21 years.
Yep.
As you've progressed along, were you able to progress quite well in that time? Obviously, you're a CTO now, so I guess obviously you have been on that progression path, but how did you find navigating to where you are today from that initial job?
I think the hardest jump that I made was from a developer to a senior developer. That was where I had to work the hardest. And thinking about it, I don't actually know why that was. And once I became a senior, maybe something changed within me, but I was a lot more outspoken, joining in the conversations, if that makes sense. So yeah, definitely the hardest was making the jump to a senior position. And I did that in the same company as well, which leaving a company to move to another company to take on a more senior role is a lot easier than actually landing a senior role within the company that you're already in, which is always bizarre. I find that absolutely bizarre. Still probably is true today. Yeah, so that was...
Yeah. Okay. So, what would you then, I guess, just to dig a little bit deeper into that, what would you say was the most challenging things of being at that level, at that stage, from, I guess, a developer to progressing to senior? Was it confidence? Was it doubt?
I guess it was how the progression was done. So confidence, maybe. I guess because I was moving within the same company, you have to jump through hoops, and the hoops are quite tiny little hoops, about 10 foot in the sky to get through. So I guess that's where the difficulty came from, and having to justify that you were worth the promotion. I found that really hard to do. I don't like speaking about myself and my things that I've achieved. I find that quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if you're wanting a promotion, that's what you have to do.
Yeah. Okay. What languages did you work with, and has that sort of progressed throughout your career as well?
Oh gosh, everything. I started off randomly doing. I spent 3 years at the biosciences company writing probably over and over again about 1,000, maybe 1,500 lines max of C code that was running on a parallelized computing platform, and then I made a big switch into Java, which is what I'd learned at university. Wrote a lot of Java, and then moved on to writing Ruby. And if you ask me which language brings me the most joy in the world when I'm writing, I'm going to tell you Ruby time and time again, even though I've probably not written it professionally now for about 8 years. I still, every time I pick it up and start writing it, I find joy. I've written .NET, doing a lot of JavaScript, Node, Python at the moment, R, anything.
Yeah.
Scala, did a lot of Scala.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've on your journey then you've worked for SaaS product companies, you've worked in consultancy.
Yeah.
So like, do you think? Because sometimes I'll recruit for consultancies and they'll say they just want somebody who has consultancy experience. Do you think they are transferable skills and somebody could work in all of them as long as they've got the right skills and maybe the right soft skills as well?
I think 90% of it is attitude to want to learn, attitude to want to better yourself and become excellent. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing that you just said is very few people are CTOs of both consultancies, which I was for quite a few years, and then moving into product. CTOs is a different ball game. I still tend to be quite agnostic when I hire people. So we've got a tech stack, but that tech stack could change tomorrow because it's the right thing to do for the product and for the company. And so I do tend to still hire like a consultancy. So people that have got the right attitude. Aptitude's nice. Attitude's non-negotiable.
Yeah. So through your journey then, did you ever think you would become a manager, you know, a leader in the position you're in? So did you kind of aim for that, or was it kind of like a consequence of the work that you've done? Where, because there's some people that want to get into management and then some people that fall into management. Where do you think you land on that?
Don't think I've ever aspired to be in management. I've always always craved the next thing to learn and next thing to experience. I guess the reason I became a manager is so I've had some fantastic managers over the last 2 decades, and the thing that I took away from their leadership was they created a fantastic space where everybody wanted to be, and work wasn't a chore. It was a joy to be there. And so that's the thing that I've always tried to do. Management, leadership is to kind of, you have to take one for the team. So would I rather be sitting, getting my code on? Oh, hell yeah. But somebody's got to create the environment where people get the joy of getting their code on. So yeah, kind of fell into it. Definitely. If you'd asked me when I was at school, do you think you'll be a CTO of a company? I don't think I would have even known what that was.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I would have told you at the time, because I was at ballet school, that I would have been a ballet, a ballerina on the stage. So definitely not something that I've aimed for.
Yeah. When was the first instance, and when you were given that responsibility to manage a team?
My first job, actually, I was the first computer scientist through the door, and a couple of other computer scientists joined, and I think I naturally take the lead. Not in a bossy way, but if nobody's taking the lead, then I will. I guess nowadays I think I'd naturally put myself out for taking the lead rather than waiting for nobody to do it and then doing it. But yeah, my first job, I was leading a team. The second job I had, not a leadership role. Third wasn't. Fourth wasn't. Fifth was team lead. And then I moved into Opencast. And that wasn't a leadership role when I started. I joined as a senior consultant. And brought a bunch of people into the business, and then somebody's got to be the leader, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, I've actively looked to move on to other leadership roles.
Yeah. So if somebody's aspiring to become a leader, what kind of advice would you give them in terms of how they can progress from a senior or, like a principal to that sort of leadership role?
I guess it's understand the type of leadership that you want to bring. So there's lots of different styles of leadership. Mine's quite hands off, quite servant leadership as well. So bring a lot of empathy to what I do, and also a lot of vision. So understand the type of leader you want to be. Read some books. There's some fantastic books that are out there that I've read. And I guess surround yourself with people that are going to keep you learning. And yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. Continuously surround yourself with people where you learn something every day. And I think leadership will come naturally.
Yeah. Did you sort out any mentors, or did you just happen to have mentors that you worked alongside that you were able to pick up things and learn things from?
I didn't sort out mentors until well into my career, so I was already established CTO. I'm saying that I had the title. I don't think I was established as one. I didn't seek out mentors until then, and the mentors that I have now are generally not technical people either. One of them is, but most of them are more leadership or business focused. It's things that are either leadership side of things or experience and things that I don't actually have a lot of experience in. Having said that, I do a lot of mentoring myself. So until recently, purely because it was just too much of a commitment with 2 little children, I was a STEM ambassador. So I used to mentor a lot of kids coming through their A levels and their GCSEs and wanting to do STEM careers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I've had some great mentors, and I didn't realise it until I've looked back over the years.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I thought I'd ask that question in terms of like, sometimes you may have a mentor which you don't really even realise is a mentor, but you are picking things up from them daily, weekly, yearly. So I'm sure you'd have worked alongside some great people in the companies you've worked for. You mentioned Opencast, Sage, Free Tea, so you'd have worked alongside some really good people there.
Yeah, I've had some fantastic, and I've had mentors that have been underneath me as well. You know, you can't be excellent at everything, can you? And you're not meant to have all the answers.
No, cool. Did you ever think about at times management's maybe not for you, or how can I improve? How can I become a better manager?
Yeah, every day. Yeah. It's really hard being a manager. It's really hard because you've got to continuously put other people's needs ahead of yourself. So every day I wonder how I'm gonna get better. I spend a lot of time with the people that I do manage, getting real feedback from them. I'm a really big fan of skip level one-to-ones as well. So the people underneath the people that I manage, how are they seeing the company? How are they seeing leadership? Where are they going?
Yeah.
What do they want to do? So, but it's not an easy task.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're quite hands-on still. So do you like to still get involved in the code? I guess obviously you're doing strategy, you're doing management, so you're still doing a lot of hands-on technical stuff.
It's very rare that I get a chance to write a big piece of code. However, I have been doing something in a bit of downtime that I've had over the last few months. A bit of innovation, some new technology. So I've been writing some code around that. I do like to keep very hands-on in the architecture side of things and the design of how things are going to work. I see that as a big part of my role as well.
And what sort of benefits do you think that could bring to your team?
Well, I guess it's an interesting question.
Sorry, I should have said teams as well because it's you're managing
Yeah,
5. So, do you think there is any benefit to you still being on the tools, as they say, when it comes to those maybe high level conversations? Maybe because I appreciate you said that sometimes you give the team autonomy in terms of like
yeah,
what tech do they think is better. So the fact that you maybe have an understanding of that and you're still hands on.
yeah. I don't think I'd be able to do my role without um, being in there and understanding what's going on. And in order to understand what's going on, you have to be involved in what's going on. Um, at a level at least. Does it bring any benefit? I hope it does. I guess for me, it's a whole lead by example and mutual respect. You know, they know that I'm not asking them to do something that I think's impossible or is unenjoyable because I understand what makes them tick. It's the same thing. I get off on the same things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about diversity. So I guess probably a bit loaded getting you on in that sense because there's only a handful of female tech leaders in the Northeast. I think I've got 2 on my podcast. Maybe there's only a few more
Yeah.
that I could have on.
You've nearly got the whole.
Yeah.
It's like Pokemon, isn't it, for you?
So I want to speak about, I guess, more to do with like female developers as well. So we've talked about your journey. I recently did some research for a client of mine where they wanted to see. Well, basically, I just brought it to them in terms of like, these are how many male developers there are and how many female .NET developers there are, and the split was 93.5% male and 6.5%
Yeah.
female. So that already makes it even more challenging to find diversity or find more diverse developers for them. So I was just keen to see, I guess, obviously everyone's journey is different, but in terms of your journey in the Northeast, have you had many female colleagues that you've worked alongside? And I know we spoke about this a little bit earlier, and you talked about a large group, if you had, were like migrated over to
Yeah.
England as well. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the first time I worked with another woman, I remember thinking, "Oh, this is bizarre. This is quite nice." Was when I moved to Sage. I worked with a lady called Fiona Hobbs, no relation. She wasn't Hobbs back then, but we've both married Hobbs men, which are not related. And it was just amazing to be alongside another woman. I'd literally been in the industry probably about 7 or 8 years and never had another female to work alongside, and it's nice because the thinking patterns, the way that I think, is very different to the way that a lot of men would think, and it was nice to have somebody who had a similar outlook on life as me. I guess a place where I've worked at where there's been the most amount of female software engineers was probably to HMRC. Majority of those were actually from immigration, though. They come over from from Eastern Europe or India. And I remember speaking to those ladies and asking, like, "Oh, what's it like? Where you've come from?" Like, and they thought it was absolutely bizarre that it wasn't more of a 50-50 split here. I guess it's I don't know. Is it a UK thing? Is it? Yeah, but when I was in Spain, there was no other lady engineers as well. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Cultural thing, definitely. I don't know why women aren't into this. It's I can see it being a fantastic job. Yeah.
I think it's great you mentioned about that you've done work as a mentor and doing like STEM programs as well. How important do you think they are to keep doing and making more girls in school, colleges, and universities more aware of the type of careers that they could they can go on?
I think it's super important. You kind of, you know, the most successful companies, the most successful products are ones that have been built by a diverse workforce, aren't they? So, you know, if you've got a workforce and they all look the same as each other, you know, you're going to get the same thing. It stifles innovation. It, no two ways about it. It's so important. I remember going to an event run by Newcastle University. It's a good few years ago. I'd just stepped up to CTO role in Opencast, and I was talking to probably around about 500 or 600 girls at school leaver age about what they wanted to do next. So asking them, like, do you fancy doing computing? Not one of them put their hands up. So I told them a little bit about what I did. And I'd say half the audience by the end had put their hands up and said, actually, we're going to be interested in this now. I think they think computing, Microsoft Office or the games industry.
Yeah.
So you start talking to them about the projects that I've worked on. Like, I once worked on a project where we were saving bats in a onshore wind farm by understanding that the bats were some really cool IoT technology, understanding the bats were near, switching the entire wind farm off so they didn't kill the bats. And everyone was like, that's really cool. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. Oh, great. I think, the challenge is just how can we increase the numbers and get more females, interested in tech.
Well, I'm trying to do my bit. So there's quite a few boot camps are popping up around, and I have made a conscious decision to try and hire people coming out of those boot camps. And they do actually seem to be more women than men doing those boot camps. Don't know why. But people that are taking on, like, coming back and actually doing a different career, so career change, going on a boot camp, actually what I'm seeing is mostly women that are doing that. And I've made quite a conscious decision to try and hire. So we've had some brilliant hires from those boot camps.
Yeah, it's like a tech returner's kind of, not like a tech returner, but like a career switch. And I think it's great because that opportunity is there as well. My sister-in-law, she's doing a master's in AI at the moment, and historically she came from like a biomedical like background, and like now she's like it is like a big learning curve for her, but like she's just interested in it because like it's a lot of what's going on at the moment. So she's like coding and stuff now, which she's never done before. So I think there is more options out there. So I hoping to see like a more, not like a lower barrier of entry in terms of like, anyone doing the in terms of like, it's more awareness to be able more people then do courses like that because there's more of them out there. So I mean, historically there probably wasn't a lot of boot camps, but now it is something that there is a lot more.
I wasn't a fan of them to start off with either. I've spent 3 years at university to get to here, and you've gone on a 6 month boot camp. That's not fair. But honestly, you have to make. It's all about equality, isn't it? Making things even for everybody, leveling the playing field. Yeah,
and I think you can obviously judge. Like I think with the boot camps, they do like a project and they probably keep track like on Stack Overflow and stuff like what they've done and stuff. So it can give you a good idea of okay, like this is what they've done, this is what they've looked into. Because I guess not always just about the finished product. It's about like how they research into things, whether they've been able to pick new things up, how do they deal with picking new things up. So I think there's a lot of value that can come from it.
100%. Yeah. I honestly definitely need to advertise it more to women what we do. I've always thought of, so I'm a maker, right? I make things. I'm a crafter. Like I made this top. You cannot buy this monstrosity in the shop. And I love building things. And for me, software development is just another outlet for makerage.
Yeah.
And you get great work-life balance. Yeah. And you know what? You're paid pretty decently. So why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
It's perfect for women. Perfect.
Yeah. So you mentioned you've got 2 boys.
I do.
So like work-life balance as well, you're in a CTO position, but how I always feel like with tech, there seems to be more of an appreciation for work-life balance I found, and even when COVID happened, I don't really want to talk about COVID, but I know like it sort of did like reset a lot of things in terms of like being able to work remotely,
Yeah.
and there are maybe it's more of a minority in terms of companies that are like wanting to get people back in the office 5 days a week, but in my experience, I've found that a lot of tech companies are quite happy to carry that on or like go to a hybrid policy, but still offer that flexibility. So
Yeah.
for me, it would be ideal because you're not having to go to like a single workplace every day, and
No, yeah.
you can work from home.
You can pick the kids up from school. Nobody's going to be upset if you're away for half an hour in and out. Like I've been in architecture tech meetings, you know, that have happened after the 4 p.m. no-go time. You know, they do. And people have had their children in the background, and nobody blinks an eye.
Yeah,
The same with my husband's company. You know, he's frequently sat with a child on his knee after 6 o'clock at night.
yeah,
And you know, it's not discouraged.
yeah. So in your experience, and have you had the opportunity to hire many female developers?
I have, yes. I always get really excited when I get a CV over, and
It must be like gold dust.
it is, yeah. So yeah, we've last year we hired a lady, and she actually lives. She's quite local to here, and she was from a boot camp, and she is just awesome. And what she brings to the team is so much more than knowledge about how to write a piece of code.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I try. I always wonder, and obviously I'm not going to know the answer to this, but do I get more female CVs through than other people? Do more women apply to jobs? I don't think they actually do because I don't get that many. But
Yeah.
does it attract them? I don't know.
I mean, there's been like research recently where they talk about when there's like a job advert or a job description online, if it's a male reading it, even if they hit less of a percentage of what
Yeah.
it's asking for, they'll still apply. Whereas
Yeah.
with a female, if they feel like there's a lot of things on there that maybe they don't have, they're less likely to apply.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know whether if they're seeing then what the company is, the research into it, and then they see you as a CTO, would that maybe then give them a bit more confidence in terms of, okay, great, there's a female leadership team there? Because again, there's not that many, so
Maybe.
that could be, but again, subconsciously, it could be something that recruiters do, or people that
Yeah.
work with you.
I always find them big, long lists of requirements really weird anyway. Like, how do you actually know you need all that? You know, why do they need 4 years of Java? You know, they might have been doing something better, which makes them a better developer. You know, the 4 years of Java doesn't. But, yeah, it's an interesting question. That So somebody told me that years ago that men literally go, oh, I fancy that job, I'll just apply for it. And women will go, oh, I'm not 100% compliant with the list that I need to check myself against. I'm not going to bother going for it. And I've kind of tried to do the opposite. So if I've looked at something and thought, what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
What have you got to lose?
Yeah.
And I do tell other women that now that I do mentor. Like, I know it says 3 years experience, but your years experience that you've had doing your role is probably better than some people have had in 10 years.
Yeah.
So ignore it and tell them how fabulous you are.
Yeah. In your experience, what have you worked alongside any developers, or have you managed any developers who have done really well in terms of like progressing quite quickly, and what did they demonstrate in being able to do that?
Quite quickly. Yeah. I guess one person really sticks in my mind when we're talking about this. There's a guy who I met at a meetup, actually, years and years ago. And he was really interested in getting into tech. And he wasn't a tech person at the time. He was actually a plasterer. And I was like, oh, you know, just send us your CV. Just tell us what you're doing. Tell us what you're enjoying. I'm on a hiring spree at the moment. You know, if come in and have a chat with us. And he sent his CV, and he obviously had no experience. But the guy was awesome, and could just talk through some really, really big complex computing theories, and I could understand that. Do you know what I mean? And I think came and joined, and within the space of about 6 months, he's one of the best developers I'd ever come across. And yeah, he's doing really well now. Yeah, I don't think he wanted leadership, so he's doing like a principal developer role. But he got there in like a matter of years with no formal training whatsoever.
Was that just passion, do you think?
Passion, completely. Passion and drive, yeah.
So I guess that might lead us on quite well to my next question, which is about, so you are involved in interviewing developers, I guess, in terms of like, or maybe not as much.
So much
but
now.
Yeah.
No, I've got head development
Yeah.
now. I feel all fancy saying that.
You can just
he does most of it.
Delegate that down.
Yeah.
But I guess thinking back then to when you have been sat in interviews, what sort of things do you look for? And it could be technical, it could be non-technical, but what sort of things do you tend to look for in the interview to enable you to make the decision of hiring someone?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely attitude. So if you talk to somebody about how you're, I'm thinking back to my open cast days, because we were living the dream then. You talk to somebody about how you build software, and they're either excited to come and do that too, or they're not. That makes up 90% of what it is. So I have a rather peculiar, being told it's peculiar, process that I use when I do interview developers. It's so around the technical side of things. So I'm not a big fan of giving people like take-home work to do in their own spare time. For one, I just don't think it's fair. And for another reason, I want you to sit and write some code with me so I can understand how you think. So I don't mind sharing this. If anybody else wants to have a go of it, feel free. It's worked really well for me for the last few years. I come up with a really, really simple process, a really, really simple concept. So I'll go back to FizzBuzz, right? Everybody knows about FizzBuzz, or Roman numerals, something that everybody already knows about, and you can just sit there and go, la, 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 there's the code, done. And get them to write it in a language that they've never written it in before. That's the only thing. We're going to do something really easy, but you've never used that programming language before. And it allows me to assess whether somebody understands the basics around computing, around a programming language and the constructs and the grammars or basic logic, that they can talk to me and work as part of a team and explain what they're thinking. And yeah, that's invaluable.
And is there any sort of like common pitfalls you've noticed when you're interviewing, in terms of like people that either, if they were unsuccessful in the process, like what they may have done or what they could have done better?
I guess one pitfall that I've seen a few times is, and I don't think this is because they don't have good answers, I think it's just failure to prepare. When you ask them for experience, like, can you tell me like the competency side of things, at a time when you did X or you experienced this, and not being prepared to answer those things with examples. So yeah, that's not good. Another red flag is overconfidence.
All right.
Borderline arrogance, and I have experienced that sometimes as well. And I hope I have never come across like that, but you never know, do you?
Is that more in terms of like for maybe their technical skills, or more with like themselves as an individual?
Bit of both. The technical skills. I've had people flat out refuse to do pair programming with me. No, I don't write code. Like I don't do that. I've had somebody do that to us when I've been trying to help them in a pair programming exercise. I'm like, big red cross. So yeah, there's some big red flags
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. So you would have been on some large scaling, when you've like large scaling programs and you've worked at certain companies. What sort of challenges have you found when scaling teams and growing, I guess, at a fast pace?
I guess I've been quite lucky, or maybe not. I don't know that I haven't had many what people would traditionally call mishires, which in the early days of Opencast we were scaling ridiculously fast. I remember one time I came back and went, right, okay, I need to hire 20 people by the end of the month, which is ridiculous because there was probably only 40 people in the business at the time. And so I guess it's the making sure you're looking after people properly. So as you scale in the business, I'm going to say bureaucracy, but that's quite a negative word, isn't it? Like the processes and procedures that you have to have around looking after people drastically changes the more and more you have. So I guess the issues that I've had is around scaling and keeping people engaged.
Yeah.
In what we're doing, keeping people aligned, keeping everybody involved in the strategy and where we're going.
Because in those companies, you to grow obviously and be as successful as companies are, you would need like high performing teams.
Yeah.
Could you maybe share some examples of like how you've been able to do that in some of the companies you've worked at?
Yeah. I guess I've worked in I've actually been part of a few high performing teams when I've been a software developer. So I guess you kind of get it's not a prescription, but you get a feeling of what good looks like, and it's not a definition of what the process looks like. It's a feeling of how everybody's engaged. So I mean, in high performing teams, you dip in and out of that though, don't you? You can't be high performing all the time. Or if you can, I've not managed it. You can be good performing, but not high performing all the time, because you're constantly trying to push the barrier. I guess for me, it was about having a common goal, being really clear with the goals and the expectations around what we were going to do, but also, that whole safe space everybody can put into this, and creating that. Conflict always sounds like a negative thing, doesn't it? But for me, conflict, I see conflict every day, and it's healthy. It's very constructive. People are coming with different ideas, and everybody has to get their idea across, but everybody has to listen as well. So I guess creating that place for healthy, constructive conflict rather than discord, yeah, is probably one of the biggest things that I do in creating the teams. Also making sure the team's got the right basis of skill sets that they need as well.
Yeah. Conflict was going to be my next question, actually. So you've lent into it quite well. But I guess you've already mentioned it, but how important is it to have some kind of conflict? Can conflict bring growth? Can conflict bring different ideas?
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It can bring growth, or it can actually destroy entire departments. I guess when I think about conflict, I don't think about two people shouting at each other, or a group of people shouting at each other, or any kind of emotion brought into that at all. It's people bringing ideas which differ and working through them, and possibly coming up with a completely different idea in a different direction, and everybody aligning to that. That's what conflict, I see conflict bring when it's incredibly constructive. And once you've got that kind of environment, you're pushing on innovation then. Yeah.
Okay, great. What can we do to get more female CTOs in the North?
I think there's just, as you get higher and higher up, there's less and less people doing the top jobs. So it's like a pyramid, isn't it? Lots and lots of junior, less mid, less senior, less tech leads, and then even less CTOs. So unless we get the bottom sorted, get more people coming in, it's never going to come up to the top. And I have been trying to short circuit some of the, like, come in, bring people in higher up the pyramid, and from different backgrounds, different sectors. But there's only so much you can do with that. So I guess making it more appealing. Sorry, appealable's not even a word, is it? Just made
Might
one
be.
up there. I think it
Might
should
be.
be now.
Yeah.
Getting more people. Like the pipeline's just not there still.
Yeah. But do you think boot camps, STEM programs, they are trying the best? And have you maybe seen any improvement of what it was?
Definitely. So I've hired a couple of people over the last few years that have come from boot camps, not just coding boot camps, but UX. And they've both been female as well. And it's been incredibly successful for the business, but also I think for them as well. So they definitely are making a difference. But they're never going to be the answer to fixing the pipeline. That has to come from an early age.
Yeah, I guess then obviously they'll be starting at a boot camp. Not all developers, not just female developers, but like how important would you say continuous learning is for everyone that joins at a entry level or junior level?
It's important for anybody in any position. So I learn something every day, at least one thing. It's several things. It's incredibly important. Yeah. You have to, and if you're not learning things, you need to move to where you are. I think as human beings, not just technologists or computer programmers, we have an inherent need to learn things and constantly expanding our knowledge of the universe. And it's incredibly important.
What are the best ways you'd say you learn?
I learn by actually doing, having a thing that I need to build or fix. So very much hands-on. And I learn by doing. So books for me. I'll get bored halfway through them. It's not my preferred way of learning. It's not watching videos. For me, it's to have a problem and working it out for myself. Yeah. With other people around me as well.
Okay, great. What are your plans for the future, if you have any, either professionally or what you want to do, I guess personally as well?
Oh, plans for the future. So it's a hard one to talk about. I do have plans for the future. I'd probably like to work less. So I'm quite intrigued by this 4-day week business that's going on. I think that would benefit me and my family quite a lot.
Yeah.
I guess plans for the future with respect to what I'm doing. There was a period of time not so long ago where I was thinking about jumping out of the tech business, the tech rat race, and just, I don't know, becoming like a yoga instructor and sewing skills, making coats for dogs and selling them on Etsy. A solid plan there. And somebody told me it would be such a waste if I did leave what I was doing, and that was like, wow, okay. So I guess I'd like to bring more tech, like purpose, into technology, purpose, and yeah.
I think you are inspiration, and you will be inspiration to other female developers. And I think whoever's talked you into staying, I think did the right thing.
Oh, thank you.
I think
Ask him that in a couple of months.
but I do appreciate being open and sharing that, because I think not just when it is a challenge, but you do always have thoughts of like, what else could I be doing that would make my life less stressful and easier?
It's never the technology. It's never the technology. It's always people. People make or break.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the technology. I've never been on a project where I've been upset because I've been writing a programming language that I didn't like. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's the people and the freedom of choice and the practice and the wanting to continuously get better and better. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. Fiona, really enjoyed the chat today. Thank you
me
so
too.
much.